Hey, it's Danielle, and today I have an American Apparel inspired DIY. I decided to make their Interlock running shorts because I've been really into that whole 70s look or 70s inspired look. Anyway, to start off, I took the shorts pattern I made for my romper video and traced it onto a piece of paper. I folded the waist down by 2 inches because I'm adding a waistband later. I subtracted an inch on the front piece and curved the corner, and for the back piece I added an inch and I also curved the corner. After that, I cut them out of a stretch jersey material, making sure that the stretch of the fabric is going horizontally, and I cut 2 front pieces and 2 back pieces. Next, I put the front pieces with right sides together and sewed down the curve using a straight stitch. I also did the same thing for the back pieces. Then with the right sides together, line the pieces at the crotch and then sew using a straight stitch. I put the back piece over the front piece like this, overlapping it by about ½ an inch, and pin them together so I can try them on. I was kind of experimenting, so I did have to alter the shorts as I went along creating them. I found that it was too baggy for my liking, so I trimmed off an inch from the sides of the back pieces. I also wanted the waist to be more form-fitting, so I pinched the shorts from the back seam, marked that extra fabric, and sewed at the chalk line. Then I cut off the excess. Next, I seam ripped the crotch and cut off an inch from the back pieces, then sewed them back together. I also made the inseam shorter by ½ an inch at the crotch seam, blending that line with the existing curves. After cutting, I folded it in half and cut the other piece so it's symmetrical. This is optional, but I traced my altered shorts so that I have pattern pieces for them. Then I laid the shorts and walked my tape measure along the side of the front piece first. It measured to 16½ inches. I subtracted 1 inch for the curved hem, then added ½ an inch for the seam allowance. I also did the same thing for the back. Make sure that the stretch of the fabric goes along the longest side of the piece. Then, I cut out 4 binding pieces, and all 4 were 2 inches in width, but 2 of the pieces I cut down to the length of the front and the other 2, the back. I took a front binding piece and a back binding piece and sewed them right sides together with a ½ inch seam allowance. I also did the same for the other 2 pieces. Next, I opened up the seam of the binding, lined it up with the crotch seam right sides together, and pinned them. Then I pinned the other ends of the binding near the waist. Along the straight sides first, and when I got to the curves, I pinned it at the top of the curve, then went down the sides. Hopefully you can see what I mean. You kind of stretch it a little, but not too much. Pinning it this way makes sure that the tension is even throughout the length of the hem. Do that for the other side. Sew a straight stitch with a ½ inch seam allowance. After that, cut the seam allowance at the curved parts. Then, take your binding piece and fold it inward towards the seam allowance. Then fold it again until the edge meets with the edge of the seam allowance like that. Then, fold it again over the seam allowance. Make sure that the folds line up. Next, sew using a straight stitch. I used a ½ inch seam allowance closest to the yellow part of the shorts, and you do that to the other side too. Make sure to go slowly so that it looks neat, especially on the curved parts. This is the actual speed that I went, and I went pretty slow. the hems with the back over the front by 1/2 inch like so. Sew along the stitches you already sewed. I used a needle to sew the extra thread to the inside of the shorts and tied a knot so that it's more secure. After that, measure the waist of the shorts by folding it in half and multiplying that number by 2. Then I added an inch for seam allowance. The height of the waistband was 3 inches because I used an elastic that's an inch in width plus seam allowances. Cut out the waistband. Next, fold it in half and sew the ends together. Next, open up the seam allowance and fold the tube lengthwise, wrong sides together. Line up the seam with the back seam of the shorts and pin. Then, fold the waistband in half and mark the fold with a pin. Pin that to the front seam. Then, pin around the shorts. Sew through the 3 layers, but leave about an inch or so for the elastic to go through. Next, grab your elastic that's cut to a comfortable length and insert it into the waistband using a big safety pin. Once it's all the way through, sew the ends together and then sew the remaining open part closed through the 3 layers. You can definitely add a functional drawstring, but I was kind of lazy, so I just sewed a tube with the white fabric, tied it into a bow, and hand sewed it to the front. And then you're done. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you make these shorts, send me pictures, I want to see. And I'll see you guys next time.